Hello everyone, I'm Carlos Garcia and I'm watching a new episode of Grim Secrets. Welcome! In the darkest corners, where shadows intertwine with the early morning mist, and the stories we dare to tell only in whispers come to life, emerge the most unsettling and enigmatic tales. Between cobblestone alleyways and houses like yours, where the ordinary mixes with the supernatural, where the animals we love so much seem to carry dark secrets that defy reason, we invite you to immerse yourself in a world where a cat reveals dark omens to its owner, leading her into a terror she never imagined possible. Where a dog, with a macabre appearance, harbors mysteries so deep and sinister in its eyes that it could consume the soul of anyone who dares to discover it. These are stories that are not just read, but felt on the skin, transforming the familiar into something deeply disturbing. So, prepare your mind and, above all, your spirit, because once you enter the following night tales, nothing will ever be the same again. Let's begin. Hello, good evening, Ariel. I would like to share my story. I've thought long and hard about whether or not to send it in, as there may be those who say it's not precisely related to something paranormal. But lately, the doubt of losing my pet has generated great intrigue, especially because of how it happened. However, I'm encouraged to share it with you because I've been part of this community for 4 years, and I know that your opinion will be respectful. The story begins when my wife and I decided to adopt a small cat when we were still dating. I've always believed that pets choose us, that we humans are the lucky ones to find them. That's what happened to my wife, or at least I believe so. When we came across Dorothy, my cat, she was going through a very emotionally complicated time, although it was hard for me to notice. The moment she saw that cat, she knew it had to be him. Up until then, she had never had a pet. At that time, I already had 2 other pets, my cat and a dog who had been with me for over 9 years. Although she knew them because of our relationship, she never really felt they were hers. I shared with her my belief that pets come when we need them, and without hesitation, we decided to adopt him. Dorothy was a very healthy cat of a rare and hard-to-find breed, which always highlighted her beauty. My wife and I transitioned from dating to a more formal relationship and decided to live together. At first, we moved into a small room, but soon we felt that the space wasn't enough for our 3 pets. I felt that it wasn't enough space for them, and in retrospect, it was a mistake to let myself be carried away by those thoughts. I started looking for a place big enough for this new family, and that ended up being the worst mistake of my life. We found a spacious apartment, though without a yard, but big enough to create a space for the pets. We settled in, and although my wife loved the place, it made me feel a bit insecure. To be honest, deep down, it did the same to her, but it was the ideal apartment for the lifestyle we had at the time, and in part, she felt it was something she could manage. She has beliefs regarding energies, cleansing spaces, and even some sensitivity to such things, and perhaps that's why she never quite felt it was her home. There was something strange. We decided to ignore that feeling. Time passed relatively normally, although being there at night scared me, or at least made me feel noticeably uncomfortable. However, I was reassured by seeing my wife well, seeing our pets moving freely without being cramped. They slept with us in bed, and Dorothy would usually lie on my wife's chest. As I said, they had a connection beyond human understanding. Dorothy cared for and protected her when she was sad or sick, as if she knew she felt bad. One night, while my wife and I were playing and tickling each other, saying the typical "I love you," "No, I love you more, you know," before going to sleep, something happened. Something that I have no way of explaining, no way to prepare you for, so I'll just say it. Dorothy lay on my wife's chest, suddenly looked at her intently, and with complete clarity, we heard him say, "I love you." I had never heard anything so clear, A chill ran down my spine, and my wife, though very scared, responded, "I love you too, but don't say it again," not knowing what else to do or say. All my life, I've had pets. From a very young age, my father instilled in me the importance of respecting them, understanding them, and seeing them as part of our family. And I don't know if you've seen those viral videos on social media of cats that seem to say words like "roll" or "I'm drowning" among their meows, videos that are endearing. But this was different. This went beyond a meow. For my wife and me, it was a very strange sensation, feeling fear, but not too much, because it was our cat, because we loved him. It's hard to explain. We didn't talk about it, didn't mention it, tried to act as if it hadn't just happened. But from that night on, the vibe in the house began to feel very heavy. Things started happening that, to this day, I still don't understand. Dorothy began to fear being alone. He didn't sleep or stay calm if my wife wasn't home. And for some strange reason, my dog spent every night in the living room, staring at a spot on the wall or lying on the bed, but always looking in that direction. The atmosphere became oppressive, and both my wife and I started to feel exhausted, with dark circles under our eyes. Something wasn't right. Being honest with you, I wasn't sleeping. I noticed this because I've always been a light sleeper, and for some strange reason, at night, I stayed awake with the cat until sleep finally overtook me.
My wife felt her energy being drained very easily, to the point of almost fainting, and that exhaustion, which we didn't talk about, began to physically manifest itself. We were tired and increasingly afraid to be at home. Even the smallest things, like getting up to use the bathroom at night or turning off the lights, filled us with immense fear.
We both began to understand, to accept that something had changed, that something was different with us, with our pets, and the constant fear that Dorothy now felt wasn't normal. When we weren't home, we would find Dorothy hiding in the closet, among the clothes, and my dog motionless, keeping watch. We decided, with much regret, to look for a new place to live, but everything seemed to put obstacles in our way. I lost my job, and the money just didn't stretch far enough. We couldn't move forward. I swear I worked hard to get us out of there, but something always came up. One day after work, I felt the need to visit my mom. My wife accompanied me, and in fact, we spent the night there. For the first time in weeks, we were able to sleep well, to rest. But the next day, after lunch, we said our goodbyes and he, dead home. I was eager to get back, to see my animals, because I had a feeling something wasn't right. And indeed, something had happened that night. When we got home, our dog didn't greet us with his usual happy barking. We found him hiding inside a piece of furniture, terrified, and he wouldn't come out even though we were there. We also found a strange stain on the wall. We didn't know how it had formed, but no matter how much we tried, we couldn't clean it. I was already on edge that night when something woke me up with bites on my feet. I checked and I saw a lot of fleas. Like any pet owner, I was concerned and checked my animals, but they didn't have a single one. The next day, we took them to the vet, who found them completely healthy. But that night, I felt the bites again, and now there were even more fleas. The house was completely infested. They were everywhere. We had to leave because it was truly impossible to stay. We went to my mother-in-law's house, and I checked my pets again. They didn't have fleas, but we found something worse. They had live wounds that looked like bites. The next day, we took them back to the vet, and now he was surprised to see them like that, in that condition. It seemed, according to him, as if they had had a flea infestation for months, something completely impossible because just a day before, he hadn't found a single one. For some reason, my little dog Chilaquil was the most affected. After a week, we gathered the courage to return to the apartment to pack up and leave. When we entered, there was no sign of fleas, as if they had never been there. But the stain on the wall had grown, taking on a monstrous shape, and I felt a mix of relief and anger. Anger at seeing it, but relief that we no longer had to stay there. I destroyed furniture, broke things, and threw away everything I could, taking only a little clothing and important documents. While we were cleaning, a huge pool of blood formed on the floor, very, very large, and I don't know why, but I felt it belonged to my dog. I thought something had happened to him, but I had no idea where that blood could have come from, and I lost it. I started to cry. I'm not ashamed to admit that I broke down. I was afraid for my pets and my wife. As if something inside me had broken, I put my hands on the floor and begged God to make it go away, but the blood kept spreading. My wife, crying too, begged me to leave. She told me she didn't care about the furniture, the appliances, or anything else. I gathered some strength and said yes. We ran out of there, and I left that blood behind. We went to my mother-in-law's house again, which at that moment seemed to be the best option. However, one day, she got very angry because we didn't pay her rent or bills. We had spent all our money trying to get away from that apartment. So, we moved to my mom's house, but we no longer had a car. My dog wasn't the same, and I began to fear he wouldn't make it, that he would be the next to leave. I swear to you, I had no money left, no savings, but I never asked my mother for anything. She didn't know what was happening, but she didn't question me either. We were only at her house for a short time before she passed away. Her heart stopped. I think it was from the shock, from hearing me cry. I stayed with her for several months until, one day, I had to leave to take my wife to work, and I found her lifeless, sitting in her chair, as if she had just decided not to go on living. I'm writing to you with a knot in my chest, with a feeling of sadness that I've never experienced before. Dorothy passed away recently. We had to put him to sleep. I can't explain to you the emptiness I feel. As I write this, I have the box where his ashes rest on my lap. I can't bear to put them anywhere else. In the months after we left that cursed apartment, I watched helplessly as Dorothy grew weaker, as his bright eyes dimmed, as if that place had taken something from him, something vital. We consulted vets, specialists, healers, and spiritualists, but no one could explain what was happening. In the end, I realized that maybe, just maybe, Dorothy had been the last barrier between that dark entity and us. Maybe that night, when he spoke those words, it was a warning, a plea for us to leave before it was too late. But we didn't listen. We stayed, and in the end, we paid the price. Now, as I sit here, alone with my thoughts and the memory of a cat who loved us more than we could ever understand, I wonder if I made the right choices, if I should have done something differently. But it's too late for regrets. All I can do now is keep his memory alive and hope that, wherever he has found the peace that was denied him in his final days. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that sometimes the most innocent-looking creatures, the ones we take for granted, can be our greatest protectors, our last line of defense against the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our reality.